power to the microphone. Yeah. Sometimes I do that. It's funny because sometimes I record my podcast and I forget to hit that little button. This microphone is a condenser mic and it has phantom power, and my box up there has a phantom power on off button, and I don't leave it on all the time because, like, why would I have this on 24/7? So I turn that button off, and half the time I'll start recording my podcast, and well, what happens from there, right? It's kind of funny. Anyway, I am live streaming as promised once a week, and today I did not give you guys all of the foreshadowing that I usually do for these, but I thought I'd give about half an hour for people who want to work out their schedule and come watch me record today's episode. I'm also live on Odyssey, so it's YouTube and Odyssey and Float today. I think I'm planning to be seeing the discussion on Odyssey. Yes. Okay. So I've got that up. I can see the comments over on YouTube if you want to, hop in and ask questions about this topic. I'm going to kind of shoot the breeze a little bit with y'all for a few minutes before I jump in and record. I just got back late last night from 28 hours of driving. It was actually more than 28, but it was about 28, 28 to 30 hours of driving over the last 3 days. And you can probably hear my voice. I'm a little tired. That's just because I'm not a good late night driver. It was really funny. My last day of driving yesterday, I left at like 8:30 in the morning. And what I had been doing before was my first day, I left by 7. I was up at 5, had a nice cup of coffee, loaded out the last couple things, left by 7, which here at 7, the sun is coming up. If I leave at 6, it's still dark. I don't like to drive after dark anymore. I mean, I used to make fun of my grandparents for this, but I don't. But I was out the door by 7 and then just drove like a bat out of hell till I got to the Rorman household and got there about 4:30. And it was a fine day, and it was about 9 hours of driving. Yesterday, I was facing 10 and a half hours of driving, which of course is going to turn into 11 or 12, depending on your stops, which isn't that much more. But it felt like a lot more because I left at 8:30 or 9 from where I was at, and by about 4:30 I was getting a little sleepy, pulled over, made a coffee. A lot of you have seen the coffee maker I used to make coffee, and you're curious about it because it's in a mason jar, and you're like, is that a mason jar French press? And the answer is no, but yes, but no. And tomorrow's Thought of the Walk, I will be doing a demo of that coffee maker. I'll also upload it to the Holler Roast channel. I need to get a Holler Roast Odyssey channel going too and get those things linked up, but I got to get some consistent video on the Holler Roast YouTube channel before I do that. Anyway, but it's a new piece of technology I was testing, and I was really glad I had that with me because I was sleepy, and I did get home after dark last night, and I realized, like, if I leave first thing in the morning right as the sun's getting up, the day's drive doesn't feel bad, especially if I can finish it before the sun sets. But man, when I leave a little bit later, I'll tell you what, man, the hours between 2 and 8 p.m. last night were long hours. The morning just is like, whoop, gone. I've listened to podcasts. I've had talks with people. Anyway, today I'm going to be recording the episode live, as I've promised. If you have questions, love it if you put it in all caps. If you're listening to this and you are on social media, just pop over, let people know we're live. I kind of decided to do this on a whim, so is what it is. And now I'm going to do an uncomfortable pause so that in my audio file there's a flat line for editing. I'm telling those of you this who do podcasts and start deciding to do live recordings of podcasts, it's a trick. It's a trick to make your editing later really easy. And then we're going to start the podcast. So here we go. Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Wednesday, September 29th. Stubborn or determined, same thing. Anyway, she has been really developing a creative interest in making cakes and decorations on cakes. And she loves to draw. She loves to do ballet and other dance. And it's great. It's really cool to watch her go from this little bundle in a blanket to the young girl that she is now. And I can't wait to see the next progression as she gets older. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the Holler Neighbors. If you're new to the podcast, we'll talk about what the Holler Neighbors even are, because we haven't done a Holler Neighbor live stream in a while, and I thought I'd talk about Holler Neighbors, how the communities work, and sometimes how it doesn't work, and just sort of our semi-intentional community that we're building here, and how we're addressing certain things. Because a lot of people have had questions about that. For you guys on the live stream, if you have a question along the way, just drop it on in to the live stream, and we'll do that. Before I jump into that, though, I did want to remind you that Self-Reliance Festival is coming, and that's at livingfreeintennessee.com/self-reliance festival. It's only $30, and that means that you can come to Camden, Tennessee on October 23rd and see some really cool demos. And when we started this concept, it was a collaborative project between John Willis and me. He's from Special Operations Equipment in Camden, and we're doing it at his campus. And I didn't like, I could have said, hey, all my friends, I'm gonna, have you do a presentation, and this is the lineup. I thought, you know what? This is an opportunity for our two networks to interact with each other and build relationships, which is so important that we get to know each other in person. And rather than say this is what's on the schedule, I'm going to ask people to submit their demo idea and just see what comes from the network for loosely organized around the topic of Self-Reliance Festival. And that concept for people has been a little weird, right? Because usually you have an event, it's like the turkey processing event where there will be a class. And so I had a lot of questions about that. And yes, people getting demos are getting paid a percentage of the door, and tickets are $30. So if you have a demo idea, I have space for maybe 2 more demos, but we've had some really cool stuff come up. We're going to have a demo on small engine maintenance, so like lawnmowers and chainsaws and stuff. We have MIG welding. We have somebody doing a permaculture overview. I need to double confirm that. That's why it's not listed on the site yet. I'll reach out to him today. Beer brewing, cheese making, cast iron maintenance, knife throwing. We've got all sorts of cool stuff. And then there will be tours of aquaponics and hydroponics. There's going to be a small hydroponic system in place for people. And there will be, like people can see how that works and then take that design home and grow food inside. And there will also be a stair making demo from Ken, who just asked me a question. Will the events overlap or be in progression? The answer, Ken, is that there will be some overlap. Right now, I've got 10 demos scheduled, and the time for the event is from 10 in the morning till 4 p.m. Most of the demos are about half an hour, but the beer brewing demo, for example, he's going to have his demo half hour, but he's going to be brewing beer for hours, right? Because it takes time. So you can pop in and out of that, but there will definitely be overlap. I will have a schedule for when there's simultaneous stuff, and then we're hosting some just guided discussions on freedom. That's, again, get your tickets. Self-Reliance Day. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com/Self-Reliance Festival. And the link is in the show notes. But if you have a demo and you're hearing this now and you're like, you know what, I could do a demo there, go there. There's a form you can fill out to do a demo. And then, of course, we have vendor spaces available. I'm not charging for vendor spaces this year, but if you need a table, I'm charging the table rent. That's it, right? So come be a vendor if you want to. We've got Melissa's Spices, Holler Roast Coffee will be there. We've got somebody who freeze dries food. We have a real estate agent with lots for sale that are local, because a lot of us are looking to move. And we will have some empty knives, neck knives for sale there as well. Patrick was going to come to this event, and he decided, because of some stuff going on with just personal stuff, that he couldn't make it. But Mama Sauce will be selling his neck knives, and it's a good chance to get one. He's sharpening them right now and shipping them to me. So I think it's going to be a really fun day on October 23rd. After things end at 4 p.m., there's going to be a hangout at Special Operations Equipment, which they do an open house, I think, about once a quarter. So it's kind of flowing into that. And John Willis made mention of a bonfire, but I imagine that's weather dependent. This does happen, rain or shine. The facility has a lot of outdoor space where we can do demos, but he also has ways that we can be covered. So that's all happening. I've got a question here on the live stream. Any chance there will be a workshop in East Tennessee in the future? I'm sure there will be workshops in East Tennessee in the future. Nobody has asked me to come do one there. And if that was going to happen with my effort, I would need a venue. However, I'm near Cookeville, Tennessee, and I do workshops on my homestead all the time. And that's not that far from East Tennessee. We get a lot of people driving out from Johnson City and from Knoxville when we do stuff here. So that's Self-Reliance Day. Also, episode 500 is coming fast. I've gotten a number of submissions. If you want to be on episode 500, send me an MP3 or something written about how being part of the Living Free in Tennessee community has impacted your life. Those are the deadline for that, guys, is about October 15th, so that I can have time to put them together into a show, and I'll play those. I'll read the emails. If you send me an MP3, I'll just edit that audio in. And for those of you out there who I know have podcasts, this is a great chance to say how Living Free in Tennessee has changed your life, and maybe also mention which podcast you're from on your MP3 file. Just saying. If you don't want to do all that, though, you can definitely, just send me something in writing. And then finally, I did want to talk about our social networks. I did an episode on boring marketing, like last week, I think it was, and I realized that, I've been kind of slacking on my own. That's kind of why I did that episode. I've been slacking on the parts of marketing I don't love to do, which is the steady stuff that happens every day. And so it gave me renewed motivation to be disciplined. And so I just wanted to let you know what's available to you if you want to connect with me and with others in the community on social. The first thing is I have a Telegram channel, and the channel is not a back and forth conversation. It's just I put out links every time that we have something. So some days we put out a lot of stuff. You'll get like 4 things, but there's not discussion, so you won't get lost in the shuffle. That automatically posts to the Telegram group. So there's a Living Free in Tennessee Telegram group, and that's where people go back and forth and converse about things. So that's one place where there's some community developing. That is less well developed than our MeWe group, though. So on MeWe, you can go find Living Free in Tennessee and join the group. And the second question, if you're new to the podcast, just make something up. If you don't get that answer right, that's okay. I'm just trying to assess if you're crazy, right? By having those questions and make sure. Like yesterday, I got somebody applying to Living Free in Tennessee who had an NSFW picture, and they did not get in because I don't know what's behind that picture. And I'm not going to take the chance that we have a picture of something pornographic come on. I'm sure it could happen anyway, but just know I'm doing my best to keep the porn off of that group. But that's over at MeWe.com, and join the Telegram group. It's actually ramping up in a really cool way. For a while, we had the same conversations going on both networks. Now we have different conversations and a slightly different set of people in each. And I think that's good because that's, different people use different social media. I am getting more active on float.app. And as that integration with Odyssey really tightens up, and as Float iterates into having a group function, we are going to set up a group there as well. Looking for people to help me manage that who want to be admins. So email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, if you're interested in that and helping me get the Float stuff up and running. And we will eventually have a 24-hour Float channel there as well that just streams video that we take off of my Odyssey channel. The latest thought of the walk that just got uploaded yesterday, I changed some settings on the video. So let me know if that is streaming okay for you, because we've been having an issue with Odyssey videos being too high resolution from YouTube, and then it and you can't really listen to it, and it's annoying. So I tried something different with the video yesterday that got uploaded, and I'm hoping that took care of the problem. Thanks, Eric, for giving me some insight on the settings for video to work better on Odyssey. It's Eric's one of the people in our community. First segment is Stomp the Sauce. And this is where you can ask me a question that you can send via email or at livingfreeintennessee.com by filling out the contact form. Stump the Sauce is you just ask me a question, I answer it. And I've gotten some submissions for a listener feedback show, which I intended to do today. And then I got home so late last night, I thought I'll do a different topic, hold that one off till next week. So get your stuff in. And yes, person who used my contact form to send in their Stump the Sauce question, I got it for listener feedback day. It'll be next week. However, early in the month, I brought up a topic for you. And I said serious September. Like I fell off my fitness and eating wagon in August and I gained weight and it is not healthy to be overweight. And I decided, well, serious September, I'm really going to stick. This is my personal goal. I'm going to stick to things. And by the end of the month, I'll share the results. And anybody who wants to do it with me can. 2 people reached out. One person also had a diet and exercise goal. So I haven't heard the update from that person, but I got a letter from somebody yesterday who said she and her husband have been vaping. And here they are eating all this whole foods and being really careful about what they eat. And they ended up quitting vaping because they're like, we don't even know what's in this that we're putting in our bodies, right? And so they did that and they ended up being successful by not vaping, and it's impacting their budget positively, and things went really well for them. Well, here's my update. I lost 6 pounds this month. Realize that when you gain weight quickly and lose weight quickly in that 5-pound range, a lot of times there's water retention due to inflammation. And that is what it is, right? So usually when I get serious about being really careful about what I put in my body, I'll drop 3-4 pounds in one day. And it involves multiple trips to pee, right? But I also went below a floor. And that floor, I'm not shy about what I weigh. Some people are. I 5 years ago went from 170 170 pounds to 190 pounds in a 2-week period of time, which is weird. I wasn't doing anything different. I was working out 3 days a week. I was eating carefully. I just went up 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And when they checked my thyroid, it was normal. And I just accepted that it was what it was. And ever since then, I haven't gotten below the 190 mark. Never. This month, I went below the 190 mark. And that was exciting for me. And what has changed is that I'm working with a functional medicine specialist on balancing my nutrition, my vitamins, because I also stopped making vitamin D that year. And so now I supplement with vitamin D and some other things. He diagnosed some underlying issues and he said, yeah, so technically you're in the normal range of thyroid, but you are on the low side, which could contribute to some of these things. So that, like some of the steps I've taken apparently have resulted in me finally busting down that floor. And we'll see how it goes. Now that I've successfully done serious September, I'm keeping it going in October because this is basically the way I need to live, right? To be healthy. And so I'll keep moving it forward. The mechanisms I put into place worked really well. I was very careful about what I eat, but I have these poker chips and I have 4 indulgences. And an indulgence is like a small amount of chocolate or an ounce and a half of a cocktail without sugar in it, like just the booze and whatever is not sugary to mix it with. That's an indulgence. And I'm allowed to have one of those, but not 2 days in a row. So up to 4 a week. Some weeks it would be 3. So I don't do the 2 days in a row thing. Some weeks it would be 4. Some weeks I don't use them all. Some weeks I use them all. It sounds complicated probably, but it works for me. And then the rest of the time I concentrate on mostly ketogenic diet and eating all whole foods. So I don't consider keto cheesecake from the store with monk fruit in it or whatever to be a whole food. It's close to a whole food, but it's a dessert. And if I had that on a day, that would be considered an indulgence. Okay. I don't consider sugar substitute snacks or other processed keto treats to be a whole food. And that's just my interpretation on it. I find that my reactions to those things cause inflammation, and it's usually the fake sweetener that gets me. And I know, okay, so monk fruit may not be a fake sweetener, but it is. It's a sweetener, right? I do better with honey. And then at that point, I might as well just have the carbs from honey. Don't know why. I actually do better with refined sugar, but I hardly eat any refined sugar. And I haven't eaten much refined sugar most of my life. Like from the time I was 19, I just decided not to eat sugar because I saw that diabetes ran in my family. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to have sugar if I'm going to have a soda, I will have sugar in a soda. I won't have fake sugar. And then I will have one a couple of times a year, and that's okay. I won't have one every day. And that's just the way, like, that was where that's why I think when I go keto, I don't have as dramatic of results as people who are eating more of that refined food because I also cut out corn syrup years ago. And it's like tortillas can have corn syrup in it. So it went really well. And I'm super excited about the progress. I've also I'm standing up on the video. I went down a size and I may still look like a chunky lady, but I went down a size this month. And that was kind of cool too. I got one more size to go is my goal. That's that, and I'll be right exactly where I want to be size wise. So hopefully you guys other people who did Series September, if I haven't heard from you, let me know. I'll talk about it online, on the show. And I won't say your name if you don't want me to. I mean, I just talked about two people without saying their names anyway, because I don't know if they want me to, right? Okay. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show. It takes a holler, which is a play on it takes a village, which makes people like twitch because Hillary Clinton said it. And she's kind of, well, anyway, I'm not a Hillary fan. And it's not a Democrat Republican thing. It's probably more of a politician thing. But I think she would have started a war had she been elected, and maybe a big world war. So I can't believe the Dems ran her, but then again, they ran Joe Biden too. So I don't know what's up there. I don't want to get off on politics, even though I just did. So it takes a village. It takes a holler. So let's start with the Holler Neighbors. Here's who the Holler Neighbors are. The Holler Neighbors are 4 households who live all next door to each other in the holler. I call it the holler because it's a steep ravine, which is a hollow, and it's pronounced holler locally. And if you look in the dictionary, they actually use the word HOLLER to refer to a deep ravine, right? And so it's even in the dictionary for those of you who are getting mad at me for mispronouncing the word. And when I moved here, we didn't know what to name the homestead, so we named it the Holler Homestead. And I looked online, I got hollerhomestead.com, and here we are today. So as people started moving into the neighborhood, and the reason people moved into the neighborhood is they got to know me through the podcast or through other networks and liked the concept of the life here. And we became friends and they moved here. And over the years, we've ended up with like 4 houses all right next to each other, just organically, that we call the Holler Neighbors. And now we get together about twice a week for a meal. Like last night, I think so Jenny was cooking last night at her house, and we'd go to different people's houses, right? Jenny was cooking last night. I was driving home. I wasn't going to be on time. Nighthawk was out of town, so he wasn't going to be there. Tactical wasn't hungry, but I don't know if he ended up eating or not. And he went over and got me a plate of food and took it over here so that when I got home, I would have something healthy to eat. And that was awesome. And, usually at the meals, we all get together. That time's really important. We'll talk about that later. But those are the Holler Neighbors, and we undertake projects together. So if you come to an event here, chances are that all of the Holler Neighbors were involved, right? And they either help with setup or they help with the event. We did an open house in June, and Jenny ended up like putting out all the food. And then after that, I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't have Jenny put out all the food because she needs to be out with people. Thanks for the tip over on Odyssey for streaming live. I'm happy to do that. I like to look at different live streams, and I have my 2 chats up over here. Float, I can't get up. I can't figure out how Float works yet, but I know they're about to do an update, so I don't really see the comments on Float. Sorry, Float people, but you are being Float casted as well. Anyway, that's how the Holler Neighbors came to be. I'm going to cough. Whoops. And we've become pretty good friends, and people want me to come talk about intentional community and that sort of thing because of how the Holler Neighbors have worked out. Well, we have the Holler Neighbors, but there's another layer where we have a close-knit group of people called the Tennessee GSD crew who are like Holler Neighbors. Like, any of them could probably move to the Holler and be part of the Holler Neighbors. They just don't happen to live here. And so it goes beyond the border of the Holler. We used to do live streams and they stopped. And a lot of people have asked me why the live streams have stopped. And there's a couple of reasons. I'll be bringing this up with the Holler Neighbors next time we have a chance to have a meal together. The Holler live streams were tapping me energy wise, and I need to keep my energy up and I need to keep my health up. And part of it's the time of day that we do it, but that's the best time of day for y'all, right? So I ended up stopping doing the Holler Neighbor live stream just because I couldn't mentally handle having more content created that day. And so the way they went the last couple of months of us doing them was no preparation. We jump on, we go live, and then we don't know what we're going to talk about. And so we just sort of keep talking and talking. And not a lot of questions were coming from people watching. People were just watching. So I decided that if we're gonna do something like a Holler Neighbor live stream, which may come back, I won't be surprised if it comes back. We need to do more work in advance about when they're happening and what we're talking about and how that's going to go down. We need to up our technology a little bit so that we can mic everybody and you can kind of hear well. And if somebody's off camera, it's not like they now have to yell towards my computer. We did get over 1,000 followers on YouTube, so now we can stream from remotely. And now that I have StreamYard, I can also just stream to all the other alternative platforms because y'all know I'm going to get kicked off YouTube at some point. So I'm going to say something about the vaccination, which I think people should be able to ask questions about the vaccinations and its efficacy and claim that they don't think it works based on the data they see and have that discussion and not be shut down by the censorship YouTube. Go ahead, take my channel down. I don't care. I don't care. If you're going to tell me what I can say and can't say, then go ahead. Whatever. Anyway, so that's why the live streams have stopped. And until that is more organized and able to be on a predictable schedule, I just didn't feel like we should keep half-assing it. And I don't like to half-ass things. So that's why it stopped. And that means y'all haven't heard an update from all of us in a long time, right? Unless you came here or unless you know me or unless you're on social media, you're not talking to us about that. And so this morning when I was on my walk, I was also on the Zello channel, the TSP Zello channel. And I said, I just don't even know what my podcast is going to be about today because I was planning to do the listener feedback show. And then that takes a lot of preparation, and I didn't get home until 8:30 last night, and then I didn't get to sleep until midnight last night, and then I was up at 6 doing my morning routine because if I do my morning routine, then this podcast gets produced on produced on time, and then my assistant can help me because he hasn't gone to bed yet. If I'm late, I got to produce it. So I was like, I'm going to get everything wired and get the roasting going and the new roaster installed and all of that. And they said, well, how about you give us an update on how the Holler Neighbors work? And yes, Ken, I am trying to get kicked off now. I also backed up on my Facebook so they can kick me off. Whatever. If you're going to treat people like that, then, we've got to resist. That's going to be a totally different episode, but we've got to be peaceful and we've got to stand up. And now's the time to do it. So here's how things work in the Holler. We have that twice a week meal, which most of the time happens, doesn't always happen, where we're able to sit and talk and, people flow in and out. The person who's most likely to miss, by the way, is Nighthawk because he's a handyman and his jobs go late and then he'll miss. And we either give him a plate or he stops by late and picks something up or he just cooks something at home. But that I find that is really necessary to help with the connection. But here's what's been happening in the Holler. We've had, and I'm not going to share a lot of personal information about other people, but I've been having a really hard time, and other ones of us have been addressing just psychological things really, really aggressively in the last 3 months. And as you can imagine, in a community, that can be kind of sticky. And we've also been looking at, okay, so we all get along most of the time. I mean, nobody gets along all the time. And we we have this resource here. How can we tap into the resource to make all of our lives better? And one of the things we have undertaken this year is to do more events and to create more value from what's here based, on food production. So we did a run of chickens, and I still have, let me see. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I have 6 chickens. Eric, how many chickens do you want? I might have 4 chickens left from that, right? So we do these classes, and that offsets some of the cost of production, the profit from the classes, and then we sell the meat too. We're starting to sell meat. We have rabbits that will be in the mix eventually. We have chickens, and now we have turkeys for Thanksgiving. And all of those are things that we collaborate on. And, Tactical probably puts in the most work on the livestock right now, but we've been looking at how do we make this equitable so we all get, yeah, so I have 4 chickens left because Eric's got 2 in the hopper. You can come get them whenever you want. If I'm not here, though, we're going to have to text or something. And I have those in the hopper, and that helps all of us be a little bit more food secure, and we're producing from the land. And then we're doing projects here to make it so the land produces more feed for the animals we have here. And then we are also growing vegetables, although most of us have gone to a more ketogenic diet, which means that the vegetables we're growing more vegetables than we eat. I probably eat more vegetables than anybody in the holler right now. So, oh yeah, you'll be there. Oh, just pick them up at Turkey Butchering Day. By the way, we're doing Turkey Butchering Day. I said on Monday there were 16 left. There are 13 or 12 left now. They're starting to pop as people realize we're doing the November 20th turkey processing class, or you can just buy a turkey without coming to the class. You can just come pick it up if you don't want to butcher your own. Anyway, so that's how things work. And as we've gone down this path, I've talked to you about holler dollars and how we're looking at ways to be equitable in money inputs versus labor inputs, and all feel like we're getting the value out of it that we're putting in, no matter what the thing is that we bring to the table. And I know it all sounds like communism and a co-op, but the whole point is it's not. It's not. Because what I think works well here is everybody kind of owns or rents their own space. And what Nighthawk finds acceptable on his property may be different than what I find acceptable on mine. And when I'm at his property, it's his rules. When I'm at Jenny's house, it's her rules. When I'm in Tactical's cabin, it's his rules. And when they're at my house, it's my rules. And none of us are tyrants, so that basically works most of the time. And I think that's really important if you're thinking intentional community and it's all communal ownership and all of that. Those conflicts on communal ownership, I think, are really tough. And when you just have clear boundaries, it's a little bit easier. And then when we collaborate, we try to have clear communication so that we don't end up with misunderstandings. Because I would say the root of most of our frustrations with each other are miscommunication based. And that just means everybody has to step up and do their best to communicate, right? One of the things that having the Holler Neighbors really solves is the homesteading alone problem. And for those of you who are alone, or you're a couple and you're out wherever you are and you're all alone homesteading, you have to deal with all your problems by yourself, and it sucks. One of the reasons the Living Free in Tennessee network has been empowering to people is we have a lot of homesteaders in our network. And even though Leos is in New Hampshire, when I have a pork problem, he's raised pigs longer than me. I can say, hey, dude, pigs, this happened. Is that okay? Right? And then he can say yes or no, and I get instant answers. And that support's really helpful. There's a Facebook group called Homesteaders of Middle Tennessee where it empowers the same thing. And a lot of people in our network are in that network too, if they're homesteading, right? That is really important, because if you're just homesteading alone, you have to figure out everything by yourself. And it's hard to do. If you're homesteading with a community around you, then you're in better shape. That's also why the Tennessee GSD crew exists, right? There are people who want to do off-grid living and then need help with installs, and we help each other. And in that we empower our relationships and we get more done. If I had to take care of this place by myself, and people ask me all the time, like, how do you do it by yourself? I'm like, I don't. I don't. I can give you example after example after example about how Nighthawk or Tactical or Jenny have done something here because I was overwhelmed, right? So I don't do it alone. And I think embracing that and accepting that is part of why it's powerful to have the Holler Neighbors, right? So this week's a great example. There's give and take. Nighthawk, as I said, does handyman work, and he's working, I think, 2.5 hours away from here, has been since Monday morning on somebody else's projects. I think he's building a greenhouse or somebody for something. I don't know what he's doing. But he decided with a 2.5 hour commute each way, that's 5 hours a day. 5 hours a day he's not working. So what he did was he drove to that location with probably with his hammock and his dog because he pre-approved he could bring his dog, and he left his rabbits behind because he has rabbits that he's raising, and somebody's got to make sure those critters have food and water every day or they'll die. Well, guess what? He was like, "Hey guys, can you take care of the rabbits?" And the timing of this was not ideal because I was out of town, but Tactical is taking care of the animals at mine. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll take care of your rabbits too." And having that without having to pay like 20 or $50 a day is huge for all of us to be able to continue raising food. That's an example of how the Holler Neighbors work together. Or I just went on a really unpredictably scheduled 3-day trip to go get a new roaster. Holler Roast Coffee has a new roaster. It's not installed yet. So those of you who ordered since last Friday, your orders are slow to ship because I'm using a 2-pound roaster to get them out until this one's up and running. I have seasoned the chamber and I have probably roasted about 10 batches, which is about 100 pounds of coffee in it to make sure the flavor profile is close to what the other roaster would have produced. The reason I got a new roaster is I wanted more capacity, and I'm getting carpal tunnel from dumping the beans from my other roaster because I was doing so much with this right arm. And I decided the bigger roaster has a different bean dumping technology that takes less upper body strength. And I decided I would just upgrade to that rather than do changes to my roaster. And then I'm selling my roaster that I bought a year ago. So that's at the roaster manufacturer right now because they've adjusted the dumping technology so that there's a spring and it's not as heavy. And then he's also redone some of the internal electronics, how they work. So that once he does all those updates, because he's going to update that machine to be more modern with his design, that'll be for sale for $3,000. If anybody's looking for a roaster, it's an 8 to 10 pound roaster, $3,000, and I can train you on it, or he can probably show you how to do it. And that's going to be for sale it'll probably, I'm going to guess it's going to take him about a month to get all the updates, but I haven't checked with him on timeline on that. But I went up there with that roaster, dropped it off, came back with my roaster. You probably all heard that story yesterday. Since we're on, the whole YouTube thing. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you might have noticed I have another thing on YouTube. Anyway, so that's how those business trips go. The shared undertakings, the way we've been handling them so far is we have a talk, hey, we're going to do this. What's each person going to do? What do you commit to? And then we move forward. And an example of that is the turkey processing workshop that's coming up, or the Self-Reliance Festival, which isn't even here. So Self-Reliance Festival is in Camden, Tennessee, as I said earlier on the show. And I was like, hey, I want to do this thing with John. Are you guys going to help me or not? If they said no, then I would organize it myself. They are all interested in coming, and they are all going to be there. And they are all, well, no, one of them's not, Jenny's not doing a demo, but two of them are doing demos. We got hydroponics and cast iron coming out of the holler. I'm doing cheese. And then I said, okay, to what extent can you guys help me? So one of the rednecks, I believe, is coming out to help me with setup. And then the other one's coming the morning of the event, staying for the event. And then the one who helped me with setups coming back home to deal with animals. And the other one is staying to help me tear down and staying an extra night And by arranging it that way, I will be hiring a farm sitter for the Saturday of the event. Like, the morning animal stuff can be mostly done, but like a midday check-in, and I'm putting my dogs in a kennel, that sort of thing. So we'll have somebody here just during the day, but we don't need to have somebody get the animals through several days who's not used to doing it, which means I can use my farmer friend down the road and it'll all work out. We had to sit down and map that out. Okay, if all of us are going to be gone, who are we hiring to be here? How are we covering it? How are we making sure none of the animals die? Because we've got 26 turkeys I'd like to keep alive, of which 12 are available now for turkey processing class and or for sale. So that's happening, and that's how we do it. And then we go into it. And then once we get into it, sometimes problems happen. And I'll talk about those all alone, like how we're handling problems and what problems come up. Um, the other thing that it takes a holler to do is raise children. And when Hillary said that about it takes a village to raise children, she was talking about like the government needs to be involved and you need to get them into early education and it takes a village, right? Her statement's not wrong. I disagree with her approach. Using force on other people's children, force of government's not a good idea. But Jenny moved here with two boys who sometimes kids misbehave and sometimes her kids misbehave. And if that happens, there are consequences, right? Well, imagine you live as a kid in a neighborhood where when you're grounded down there, you're grounded when you go next door. Or when you're not allowed to have sugary treats because it's not good for your metabolism or whatever, you're not getting sugary treats from the neighbor. And so when I say it takes a holler for that too, because we strive to have similar environments at our properties when her boys come over so that it's clear. Yeah, okay, your mom said that you're grounded off screen, so we're not playing TV over dinner, right? Or whatever that is. And I think that's something that has gotten lost a lot, where people are depending on their community to come from the government, from your government school, and not from the neighborhood, and not from other ways that you voluntarily interact. And then people are so afraid to share what's going on in their family to say, okay, I need you to back me up. Like if you see Johnny down the street on his bike, let me know because he's grounded from his bike. It's in the 80s, and I hear Jack say this on the show. In the 80s, when I got off school, I was a latchkey kid. Um, there were things I needed to do, but basically I was on my own until dinner. And what I would do is say, okay, well, mom, I'm going to go play with my friend Chad up the road. And Chad and I would go ride our bikes up the road to the neighborhood where other kids were outside and we'd just play on our bikes or go off, like bike jumps or go make mud pies or climb trees or whatever it is kids do until it was starting to get dark. And then you had to be home. And, at some point there was a time I had to be home, but basically the the statement was be home by dark, unless dark was going to be 9 p.m. and mom wanted me home at 6, right, for dinner. And that all worked just fine. And if I was down the road in the neighborhood, because I lived in a fairly rural place, but about 3/10 of a mile away was one of those suburban neighborhoods that pop up out of the country. Like you see that happen all the time now. If one of the parents, saw me getting in a fight with somebody, my mom was gonna get a call, and when I got home, I would get in trouble for that. Or like late in later years when she was working, because at first she was home and then she was working, message would get back and I would get in trouble. Same thing will happen with Jenny's kids. If we see them doing something, Jenny will hear about it and then things happen. We've lost that though in most communities, and that's something, guys, what I think is cool is it's so easy to take that back. The way you take that back is you get to know your neighbors and you get to know the people your kids are with, and you say, I want to know if Johnny uh, does something that Johnny should not do, and I will handle it. Let me know, right? That doesn't work with everybody because there are people who now believe it's their business how you discipline your child. So you have to feel that one out, but I think you can do it. And the more you find people who have shared values with how children should be raised and what sorts of things children should be into, you have a much higher chance of achieving that. And when I look at I've been thinking about this. I was in a car for 28 hours, so I had lots of time to think the last 3 days. As I'm looking at what I see to be cultural and behavioral problems in our society, including the march towards fascism, accelerated march towards fascism that we have right now, I see underlying that we have broken appropriate behavior from our children to us. And then we become adults and we're misbehaving adults to each other. We've stopped being gracious. We've stopped being polite. We've stopped understanding when things are none of our business. And we have been accelerated and empowered to think you can talk to people as if they're dirt by social media. That behavior has been empowered. It doesn't mean it never happened before, but the lack of consequences for bad behavior, me to you, if I'm a jerk to you, then and I don't have a consequence from that, then you know what I mean? Um, that's a problem. And it starts with how we train our children. And we train them in the government schools to where consequences don't matter. And we train them because we've already been kind of trained to where consequences don't matter. And it's getting worse with each generation. We got to claw that back. And we can. That's the thing. What I realized on my drive was, and I'm sure there will be all sorts of podcasts about this, is it feels like we've gone too far and we haven't. We may go the distance into genocide on this particular iteration, guys. I don't know. But it's not too late to pull it back. And the only thing that you and I can do to pull it back is what we can do, right? And if more of us do what we can do and talk about what we're doing, it empowers other people. I was so struck by the world when I went on this drive and how it's normal. The world is normal. If you are in a city, the world is not normal for you. But I drove from here to Kansas and back. And the only place where rural world was not normal was Kentucky. Kentucky, you got to get your shit together. Um, there was some weirdness in Kentucky, but everything else was just people talking. And I talked to people from various political bents about hard to talk about issues like COVID and the vaccine and the mandates and all of that. And most of them that I spoke with, I don't know if this is regional, most of them I spoke with were not pro mandate. The ones who were pro vaccine and thought everybody should get vaccinated also acknowledged that it's a choice. And we're not scared of the unvaccinated. Think about that. Most people I'm talking to, but everybody's so scared to talk about it because sometimes when you talk about it online, people lose their shit. And that's happened to me a few times online too. And I've noticed the people losing their shit are in the Pacific Northwest on my friends list. And I wonder, is it because I have more friends in that area? Or is it because regionally, people were made a lot more miserable in the Northwest than where I live, than in the Midwest and the South, right? They were made a lot more miserable by shutdowns and all of the other things, and their bottom line and their livelihoods were more impacted. And so they may just be more in more pain and more willing to inflict. If I'm going to get out of pain, I'm willing to hurt people to do it by taking away their right to choose what goes into their body. Ironically, people who think the drug war should be over are the same people who want to inject me with something I don't want to take. Anyway, that's, a bit of a tangent, but it goes back to it takes a village or it takes a holler, where we need to empower each other, because in empowering each other, more people stand up, more people discipline the kids for bad behavior. The more we discipline ourselves and our children and get them into what is appropriate behavior, the more we can push back on the culture war. It's that simple. It's a culture war that we're in right now. That's all it is. And we can take it back, but we have to decide to take it back, and we don't need to be violent about it. Um, so back to the Holler Neighbors, handling problems. There is no way that living, like no family doesn't have conflict, right? And so it would be silly to think you can have an intentional community or a Holler Neighbor setup where conflicts don't come up. They do. They come up for a number of reasons. One, sometimes one of us is just having a bad day. We take it out on somebody else. Like, it can literally be that simple. Or the biggest thing I see that happens here is we disappoint each other because of misunderstandings or non-communication. And the way we address that is we try to talk about it, but sometimes when we talk about it, it doesn't resolve. And we do the best we can. We haven't had any really big um we've had big conflicts, but we haven't had big damaging conversations. And I try to, when a conflict is coming up of that nature, I try to have a talk about it or figure out what can we do or what can we agree to moving forward, right? Because if we concentrate on the conflict itself, it may not resolve. If we concentrate on what needs to change and what can we really commit to, it's more likely to change. But we go in fits and starts on that, honestly. Handling problems on a small scale is a lot easier. If there were 100 of us, that would be harder, and we may need to have mediators or something in the mix. I don't know. With 4 of us, at the end of the day, if somebody's so unhappy with how we interact, they can move, or they can stop participating in things that bother them. And I've really been thinking about how boundaries work as part of this. Good, strong, clear boundaries are very important, and I'm not gonna say we do that well necessarily here. I'm gonna say we work on it. So handling problems is the biggest thing people ask about, and, um, my answer is never very like, "Here's what you need to do," and the reason is different situations require different solutions, but I think having a commitment to each other's well-being and everybody's important is part of resolving those problems. So that's what I have to say about that. I'm not seeing any other questions from the live stream on that topic. If you end up having one, toss it in there. And then the last thing I wanted to cover is other challenges. So here we are in the holler, and we have other challenges that come up. Everybody, when they live like this, will have challenges that come up, and they can be external. It could be that Jenny's house burns down. Now where do we put Jenny? Right? That's not happened, thank God. But that happens. I can say what happens when other challenges come up is we pull together and try to address them. The first example that comes to mind was we had an ice storm last year where electricity was out for most of the week, and Jenny's house doesn't have a wood stove. So her heat is electric. We didn't have power. So she didn't have heat. And what we did when the power went out before her house like plummeted is we looked at what resources do we have as the 4 neighbors, and how do we keep her functional or warm as we can with the resources we have. And what we ended up doing before the ice storm came, actually, we had this talk because we're like, this is our biggest risk in all of this is Jenny's going to freeze. And we sent down a couple of kerosene heaters, and then when the power went out, she tried to light them, couldn't light them, and we were able to communicate with each other over cell network on we were using Telegram, I think, during that storm. We also now have, thanks to Brian, we have um, basically walkie-talkies that work, so we can, as long as they're charged, we can communicate just over airwaves, which is nice in a snowstorm, so you don't have to run down and talk in person, by the way. So we then went down and tried to light the kerosene, and it didn't work. And so then we brought a different kerosene stove down there that was at my house as a backup and got that to work. And in that way, she stayed warmer. She did not stay warm. And we've known going into this winter, we need to do something different, right? So I just had the chimney inspected. It's not going to work with the stove insert that's in there. I now have a fireplace insert for sale, by the way, because we're going to pull that out, and she's just going to have a fireplace. until we can figure out if and when and how a wood stove goes in there in a safe way. Like, the good news is we had it inspected and discovered she could be developing a carbon. If she had used it, it could put carbon monoxide into her house, and that would have been bad. So that's, that's how we handle other challenges, is we tend to talk, and sometimes we're in a panic when it happens and we're not in our best mental state, when there's water pouring into a basement, for example, and at the same time pigs getting out, and I don't know, somebody's mom just died. um we'll get together and it will be stressful, and sometimes words are said, but it's never like you're a poopy head. It's more of a, I need to get away for a second and think, and or a little bit of snapping. And what I like about how we handle challenges is that we are able to come together and pool resources and then make decisions from there. Or, had that ice storm gone on for weeks, I think we would have ended up with a lot of people at my house, because my house has the most stable heat in a situation like that. And that just means a lot of people all in one place. And then we have to figure out how you get alone time, right? Luckily, we didn't have to do that this year. Hopefully, we don't have to do it in the coming winter. But that's all. I just wanted to share you those sorts of updates from the Holler Neighbors. I hope you found this episode interesting. I do find that having the community nearby is so important. And if you're just starting your homesteading journey or just starting your journey towards community, the way you get that done is you start with one. Start with one. If you choose the one, and they don't have to be next door, choose somebody nearby. My first one was Carly, who's across the county. Once I had Carly, my community exploded from there. And we ended up with I'm tapped into a lot of resources by starting with one in-person relationship with somebody I like to hang out with, who I can trust, who we have some shared agreement on how we help each other, with the intention not to take advantage of each other. Boom, done. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at Holler Roast. I'm having a nice cup of coffee here in a giant mug because I was a little sleepy when I got up this morning. Caffeine's a crutch, man. The other way you can do it is to become a member over at Holler Roast over at livingfreeintennessee.com. If you become a member, you do get $25 off that turkey processing workshop. So you may want to check that out. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. And another uncomfortable silence so I can cut the audio out. Guys, thanks for joining the live stream. I'm not seeing a lot of traffic on the comments, so we're gonna end this one so I can get it to Pranov in the next 5 minutes. I'm gonna be 10 minutes late on the audio file so that this gets out on the audio podcast. Next week we'll be doing a live stream. I don't know which day, but I'll get that out by Friday so you can plan for next week. And I'm just gonna keep doing this weekly as I can. Bye, everybody. It's not ending.